tongue kiss through the kitchen screen. La doo doo doo, tongue kiss through the kitchen screen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome
Good
to
afternoon.
the History of Music with Oshel and Dan. I'm Oshel.
And I'm Dan.
And we're here to bring you those...
Everything that the mainstream media just can't provide, just won't provide. Darn it, just doesn't see the need to provide, really.
Doesn't have the capabilities to provide is really the issue here. And
you won't see Peter Jennings bringing you this kind of excitement.
that's right.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs, track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I am Dan Fiden. We're taking this journey together, providing context, both historical and personal, on some legendary bands. For this season, we have selected none other than indie rock legends, American Music Club. J. William Hall, welcome back. We have been away for a long week, recovering from the first in our trilogy on Mark Eitzel's The Invisible Man. It was such a content-packed week last week that we decided to cut side A into two parts. This is part 2, where we actually dig into the audio. Okay, so, J. William, should we dig into the track by track? We are deep into this one already. I think it's time to start side A.
Let's put the people out of their misery. Let's get into the tracks.
Now, this is a very kind of Morrissey-like song title, The Boy with the Hammer and the Paper Bag. Isn't that a very Smithsy kind of a song title?
The boy with the hammer and the paper bag.
5 minutes and 53 seconds. Let's listen.
We were laughing in the face of the pain of the family next door. Too fucked up to feel anything. And if that's what you want.
All right, J. William Hall, there it is. What about these lyrics? I want you to cover them because I found them, frankly, pretty inscrutable.
A little bit inscrutable. I did a little bit of Googling around on different things, and
Yeah.
it sounds to me that the scenario that I concocted in my head about this song is that it's a commentary on privilege, where there are privileged people who are partying and laughing and having a great time right next door to a serious tragedy.
Okay. And how if you don't mind me asking, how do you arrive at that?
I'm glad you asked, Dan.
Okay, good.
So I'm reading through them now. So, okay, the thing that started me down that track is the beginning of the second verse. He says, the Mill Valley man starts tap dancing to Midnight Cowboy, and suddenly there's sirens outside. Someone's home is burning down. But so I was like, Mill Valley, that means nothing to me in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
So I Googled it. And it's this place in California near L.A. that sounds like maybe it's kind of like celebrities have homes there, and like maybe it's like a wealthy place. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, you are actually.
Okay.
Mill Valley is in the northern. It's in the what they call the North Bay. In San Francisco. It's kind of near Sausalito. It's across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco, more or less. Now it is I don't know what it used to be like, but it's a, kind of a wealthy-ish suburb now. Mm-hmm. But I'm I'm not aware of rock stars in particular.
Celebrities.
Although
Celebrities
it's
living
possible. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible, but I'm not certain.
Well, okay, so bear with me here.
Okay.
There's a whole part about the colonel starts playing tambourine. It's so funny. We're rolling, we're laughing in the face of the pain of the family next door, too fucked up to feel anything. And then he says, if that's what you want, etc., well, it's nothing. So to me, that seemed like a condemnation of, these people kind of partying and whatever, like, while this great suffering is happening right next to them, but they choose not to see it.
Yeah.
You disagree.
I don't. It's not that I disagree. I just don't. I don't necessarily get that quite. I didn't take it quite that literally. Although the images here are fairly literal, right? Like, and that's what I found so confounding. I didn't really see what connected all of these things together, even kind of thematically. But they are very. They are relatively specific images, right? This is not just emotional kind of characterizations. This is not pure poetry describing colors, describing sounds type of thing. He is describing scenes in what seems to be a fairly literal way, although obviously they're reasonably absurd scenes, right? So I don't know. I just didn't really. It felt the way it just kind of like left me feeling was as though it was somehow misanthropic. But I'm not. I really kind of didn't get too much more out of this one than that. Although I will say the image of a boy with a hammer and a paper bag I found to be very foreboding. It kept making me feel as though this boy is some kind of stand-in for impending threat and impending danger.
Yeah,
But, does that make sense? Like, I just don't really know how it all fits.
Well, at the end, he says, he returns back to that boy. He says, but he was really harmless. He only used the hammer to smash the windows of the parked cars on his way home, etc.
Yeah.
So there is an sort of a threatening kind of like, that's a threatening visual. There's a boy with a paper bag with a hammer, I agree though that like, I don't know what everything in this song is about, but the music sort of sets it up to be, it sounds tense. It sounds like tense and dark, and like there is something threatening here, but it's hard to tell exactly what. I guess the boy.
And there's it's the opener for the Radiohead album Kid A starts with a song called Everything in Its Right Place, and it has a similar propulsion in the rhythm and the music as this. I feel like this definitely sets a tone for the album, right? This starts the album with like a very driving drum loop, and the song is really just scaffolded by two piano chords consistently through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's already like a little bit of a left turn in terms of Eitzel. Like I don't recall anything quite that feels like this in his back catalog. The chords are definitely these sort of jazzy kind of chords, but and the other thing is that this is the introduction of the electronics, right? Like they start to kind of gradually creep into the song. And, I think they kind of add to the tension because like they're very busy. Like they get very busy. I mean, they're not like dominating, but there's a lot going on like with the background clicks and percussion and whatever versus the piano chords that are just holding these big long whole notes kind of the whole way
Yeah.
through it. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's an interesting opener. It's evocative.
It is.
Like I think it definitely kind of opens on a mysterious note, especially given like the cover of the album and the title of the album. Like it has this kind of like murder mystery sort of vibe to it.
Yeah. And I want to just segue this right into the second song. I think that vibe is so strange as we move into the second song. There's no question. It's foreboding. It's tense. It declares this album to be something distinctly different than previous Eitzel albums. But then you move into track 2, and I think in some ways it retreats from that. But why don't we just move on to track 2 if you're okay with that?
All right.
All right, let's listen to that right now. It is called "Can You See?" Can you see?
And you even say, well, another man's hell could be my heaven. And you say, if this is being blind and wrong, give me more and more. And you say, let me light up the hand and let me pull the truth through. But if the truth don't make you happy, what will you do?
J. William Hall.
Yeah.
Can you see?
The truth
Can
is
you?
I don't
Can you
know.
see?
Can you see?
Can you see? Can you see? 3 minutes and 1 second. I found this lyric to be incredibly sweet, actually. Like a very sentimental and kind of a sweet lyric, especially in juxtaposition with this very kind of disturbing set of lyrics that appears in the first song. If you were to distill these lyrics, and obviously I'm doing a lot of work here by asking you to do that, but if you were to distill these lyrics all down to that repeated line at the end of the verse, the truth is that I'm happy when I'm with you, it really just kind of like he layers the kind of classic Eitzlerian kind of complexity and kind of emotional, this sense of emotional struggle and the kind of imposingness of the world on a sensitive person maybe. But then he just kind of like gets to this end point where he's just like, he just kind of ends it by saying like, well, I'm throwing my hands up because none of that really matters. What matters is that I feel good when I'm with you. And I just think that's I think it's just a very sweet, almost uncharacteristically sweet sentiment from Eitzel.
Yes, this is sort of the kinder, gentler Eitzel sort of side. I agree with you. This is a sweet, essentially a love song, where he talks about some heavy things, or there's sort of like heavy imagery that's sort of sprinkled during the verses, but yeah, it all boils down to the truth is that I'm happy when I'm with you. And I think it's a really nice song. It's interesting musically as well. First of all, it's got this like mellotron sounding, or I guess it's a Wurlitzer organ.
Or a Chamberlain. Could be a Chamberlain. I think there might have been a Chamberlain in here.
Some kind of organ going on, but it is definitely like I've never heard that instrument. I feel like I could be wrong. Like maybe.
Okay.
Maybe am I wrong?
We got to talk. We got to talk about this. So very specifically, I had a moment in the beginning of listening to this for the first time where I think it's a Chamberlain. And if it's not, I misheard it as a Chamberlain. But as soon as I heard it, I thought John Bryan. Do you know John Bryan? Producer John Bryan, musician John Bryan, really had a moment, honestly, around this time. Mm-hmm. He produced Fiona Apple's second album, I believe. And also worked with Elliott Smith.
the big long Eitzlerian title.
I think that's right. That was the one. It kind of colloquially. How do you say that? Colloquially known as "When the Pawn." Underrated album in my opinion. John Bryan, really interesting. Worked a lot with Elliott Smith around this time, and I believe produced the Elliott Smith record Figure 8.
Okay.
Or it might have been XO, but one of those two. And I believe that was kind of right around this time. And so I as soon as I heard this, I thought like, oh, John Bryan, there's that similarity.
I was reminded of the Beatles, the beginning of what is it? Strawberry Fields or whatever. It starts with just the organ. That's what it reminded me of. And I'm sure that, that's what John Bryan was drawing from, with his a lot of his production stuff, I think has a Beatlesque quality to it.
Very Beatlesque, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's cool though. Like, this is sort of an about face in terms of tone from the first song, but this, you can hear this sort of starts, aside from that organ, that you've got his finger picking acoustic is back. It's more prominent in this song, so he sounds a little more familiar.
Yeah, I just really this was the song where I was like, wow, the music on this one I really like. I love the drums on this song. And so I do think that there is this young man, I believe, who plays on this, named Eric Gebau or Gibo. Not sure how to pronounce it, but he's credited with percussion and some kind of like timpani, so like orchestral percussion. And there's a lot of like kind of...
See, now we got this from different sources, right? Or are you looking at the album, like liner notes? Are you looking at the liner notes?
No, I'm getting this off of allmusic.com.
Okay, so Discogs says that the drummer on this song is Jim Bogios.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yes. So
well, he might have been. It's possible that it's possible that they both played production on it.
That's entirely possible.
I don't know that.
I don't trust either of our sources 100%.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I'm gonna credit him because I have found an image of him online playing the drums. Now, it may not be that he's playing drums on this, but whoever is playing the drums, I like this kind of symphonic approach to the drums. He's playing like snare cadences and stuff. He's not playing a full set, I don't think. And that approach to the percussion on this album pops up a couple of other times on here. And it's one of my favorite things about this album. Could be because I'm a drummer, but I just think it's unusual. I think it fits really well. It gives it that propulsiveness that I think the drum loops can also give these songs without sounding, to my ears anyway, as dated as some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I think like on some of these songs, I don't doubt that there was a loop underpinning the whole thing, and sometimes you feel like you can hear a bit of a loop or whatever electronic going on, but then there's there's actual snare drum cadences going over top of it, and so that makes it sound less artificial. Yeah.
I don't know. I really I think that this was the first song where I was like, oh gosh, this is really good. This one kind of wormed its way into my head pretty quickly. I really like
catchy.
This one.
Very
catchy.
The first thing, the can you see, like that is like the hook, that he returns to again and again and again, and it's almost like putting the chorus like right up front, and then it's followed by a big verse, and then that's another chorus that starts the next big verse, and well done.
Yes, indeed. Shall we move on to the third track?
Yes, let's.
It is Christian Science Reading Room, 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Let's go.
I was so high, I stood for an hour outside the Christian Science Reading Room, and suddenly I could not resist. I became a Christian
there we are. J. William Hall, I want to just lob this one over the net to you to just slam home on these lyrics, because I feel like this is a good one.
This, appears to be a very straightforward story about getting super, super high and then going to the Christian Science reading room, which, I believe there is a Christian Science reading room in Columbus, Ohio, or there was downtown, and it's these storefronts, right, where you can go in and ask them about Christian Science and they'll talk to you or try to convert you or whatever. But, in this song, he gets high, goes there, can't resist, and so he becomes a Christian Scientist, and then, is living this holy life, and then he scares his cat, and then the cat becomes a Christian Scientist, and they explore the world together, which I think the song's hilarious. Do you think I got it right, or is there a deeper...
I think you got it. No, I think that's it, and I think it is the funniest Eitzel composition in the catalog to date. I thought this song was just so funny, and the music is not goofy, or it doesn't kind of come across as goofy as...
No, not at all.
In the same way that like earlier, funnier songs kind of tried to. And I'm thinking of Art of Love, right? A younger Eitzel maybe would write a song that he thought was kind of a little goofy, and then the band made it goofy, right?
Right.
You could even say this about like Crab Walk.
Yeah,
but the music is somehow simultaneously perfectly fitted to the lyrics, but it isn't like, Weird Al Yankovic-y. It's just kind of like, I think this is like a totally unexpected Eitzel song, but I love it. I think it's really funny. It just had me laughing so much. I definitely have been there with, unnamed
You've been to the
podcast
Christian
hosts.
Science reading room, yeah. I have also been to the Christian Science reading room a couple of times. And, I think this captures the experience perfectly. I do love, though, you're right, like he approaches the music, it's this slow, hypnotic march. And it has this vaguely like psychedelic kind of vibe to it. But he does not play it for laughs. It's just this, it does almost sound like a holy mantra kind of, it's got like, percussion things and droney things going on that kind of support that, like, and then it just tells this really funny story. And, the thing that I love that he does on this song almost, I think throughout, is he self-harmonizes.
I was going to mention that as well. Really cool.
Yeah, I think it sounds great, and I think this song is awesome.
He does not do a lot of that harmonizing with himself over the course of the catalog. I do think that we called it out a couple of times in like mid to late era AMC albums where we heard it once or twice, but he's not somebody who does a lot of that. Not Elliott Smith-like in that way.
Now, according to my source, we got Jim Bogios on the drums on this one, and I noted because he played with Counting Crows. He was playing with Sheryl Crow is one of his big credits during the 90s.
Yes.
And I think he must have like filled in for the Rolling Stones or something at some point. He has a Rolling Stones credit. So, this guy knows his way around the kit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if that's who it is, I noted that the approach to the percussion here is similar to the last song, and I liked it equally well on here. Thought it was strong. All right, so should we move on to track 4?
Indeed.
Sleep. Okay, 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Let's give this one a listen.
Thinking that one day it'll turn into a diamond. If I had a sun that could dissolve you like sleep,
Okay, so these lyrics, Jay William, I'm gonna let you start off with. I have my thoughts, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I read this as sort of a commentary on like fake celebrity culture.
Yeah.
So like he's trying to poke a hole through the celebrity bubble to make somebody sort of like dissolve to reality. That's kind of what I would, something along those lines.
I think he certainly, there's that great line right up front where he talks about the celebrity smile show.
Yes.
And I think in that specific instance, I would definitely agree to you. But overall, I took it more as kind of a classically Eitzlerian us and then those other people. And those other people are the people who somehow function more successfully in society. He talks about people who are able to trap the light. I always kind of like he uses a similar metaphor elsewhere in his catalog. I couldn't find where it was, but he uses that similar phrase elsewhere. And I kind of take that as meaning people who somehow gather the spotlight onto themselves naturally. They kind of are able to, have a charisma, control a room, operate within society in a way that I think Eitzel is resentful of and thinks of as some other category of people than maybe the kind of prototypical folks that he's sitting with at the bar. And I took the lyrics overall to fit into that type of, kind of Eitzlerian trope. Do you buy that?
That's a pretty compelling interpretation. I can't really argue against it. I was maybe reading too hard into the opening verse. But yeah, I think you're right that he's talking directly to somebody, and it is sort of an us and them kind of situation. So not strictly celebrity, whatever, but yeah, like we're outside of this thing.
You know what I loved about these lyrics? He has a line in the kind of the more or less the chorus, right? Where he says, "A pedal steel guitar, simple and clean." I just I like that. What I read is a reference to AMC and to Bruce Caffin, and I don't know that Eitzel literally meant that, but I do feel like there's buried somewhere in his use of that phrase is this kind of wistful admiration of that in their music.
I mean, how many other pedal steel guitar players does he know?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll have to ask him if he's on the podcast, which I think is probably not going to happen at this point. But, we can make a note, ask him.
Hey, people change their minds. People change their minds all the time.
It's true. But I thought that this was an interesting, musically, I thought this was an interesting one. It's really I really like the 3-chord progression of the verse. You may not remember it exactly, but I just found there's this just 3-chord progression that I just really liked. I found it really memorable, somehow evocative in a way I can't describe, but just I liked it. But the chorus I felt really left me flat. It felt disconnected to the musical progression of the verse, right? It felt like the chorus was somehow out of place and outshone by the verses in this one.
I found this one a little bit sleepy.
It's called Sleep.
Right. And so, yeah, I kind of felt like this one didn't have, for me, it wasn't as gripping as some of the others on the album. I don't know. The one So I was like, oh, looking at who played on this according to my source, and the bass is by a guy named Brian Gregory, and he was in a band called The Shallows. And I went to The Shallows, and it says The Shallows were a U.S. Americana band featuring Mark Eitzel's bass player Brian Gregory, and they released a CD EP in 2001. And that seems to be it. Like, I don't see a lot of credits for him, so I just thought it was kind of funny that he is described as his band. Yeah, Mark Eitzel's bass player. But as far as I could tell, he only played on this song on the album.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the full story is there. I don't have full information.
You know what I did note on this one? I by this point in the album, I kind of had made my decision that I generally like on this record the more abstract backgrounds rather than the acoustic guitar with like the classic hip hop loop, right? Which is really kind of where I land on that David Gray thing. It's like that boom, bop, 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 boom, and they just like loop it at different speeds is basically, and then they get the acoustic over it. I think it's an evolution, frankly, of the Coffee House Jam.
You're right. I mean, this enabled people to do like solo jams because they could like loop, something on their guitar loops. I mean, that's kind of what he's doing here. Like that guitar loop you're talking about, it's just like that echoed, like single chord, echo thing. But you're right. I think that, this type of thing happens in coffee houses from time to time.
Yeah. All right. So shall we move on to the next track, To the Sea? Okay. To the Sea, 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Shall we listen?
Let's listen to it.
They're like planes and trains. Here I'm bumping the night. The songs live all alone. They just wash up on a bank. The souls are beautiful, but finally start to stink.
All right, J. William Hall, I'm going to tell you about these lyrics.
Okay, do it.
Okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
To the Sea. I was surprised when I parsed these lyrics, but I am very confident that I've nailed this one. And this has a very clear meaning that we can pass along to the listeners. This is a song about Jeff Buckley.
You, I believe, have nailed it on the head.
Yeah. I don't know. Were you able to suss that out as well? I mean, was it really super obvious?
Well, no, I don't think it was super obvious, but like, I read about, the River Through Memphis, the song by Led Zeppelin, A Whole Lot of Love. And I knew that, he died in Memphis and he was singing that song. That was like the last thing, And so then I was like, could this possibly be? And I knew it was around this time. And then I Googled and I found an article that said, yes.
Okay. So you did find, Well, it definitely is. He talks about grace, right? Grace is, and it is one of the many, I think, observations by singer-songwriters, by musicians about Jeff Buckley. It's interesting to me just how many musicians were kind of captured by the myth of Jeff Buckley. Now, I'm a huge Buckley enthusiast, as you know well.
Right.
Saw Jeff Buckley live.
Yes.
One of the best shows I've ever seen.
I also had the honor to see him live.
Oh,
time. I did.
You did see him live? Where did you see him live?
He was opening for Juliana Hatfield at a club in Pittsburgh called Metropole, which was like the place back in the 90s.
Yeah, I saw him live on that same tour, opening for Juliana Hatfield, but it was in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah. That is, I think, all we really need to say about the lyrics here. I will say, though, that I was pretty underwhelmed by the music on this one. It is, I think, actually the lyrical sentiment is, I think that these lyrics are among, or perhaps are, the most kind of well-crafted set of lyrics. Consistent, interpretable, relatable, accessible, but not in a Sugar Ray kind of accessible, but accessible, right? They do allow you in a little bit, and I think the sentiment is both about Eitzel and Buckley. I think it's very sweet. So I was really kind of like captured a little bit by these lyrics, but I was really underwhelmed by the music. I found it to be one of the most drony, boring songs on the album.
I guess I didn't have that strong of a negative reaction about it. I thought this one was the most sort of like almost like hip hop influenced, like just in terms of the production, because there's sort of like kind of these hip hoppy loop drums and they start and stop, and there's like these breakbeat kind of things going on. But you know, he's got the sort of like dark jazz piano loop going, and you know, he's strumming away, and there's like the cinematic sounding strings in the background. Maybe it's not super dynamic, like once it all kicks in it kind of just like, you know, rides it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, well, you know, I mean, I was kind of like oh geez, I had no idea he had written a song about Jeff Buckley. And you know, here, you want to hear some horrible fan speculation?
Sure, yeah, why not?
So late in the song, he says, you thought I was busy? Well, I was just busy running from your beauty. And I was like, oh my God, did Jeff Buckley want to collaborate with Mark Eitzel? And he kind of put him off. And then, you know, this tragedy happened. And this is what, you know, you thought I was busy. I wasn't. Maybe he felt like he was intimidated by, you know, I don't know. Wild speculation. Why? Just a theory I'm putting.
Whoever, are you gonna credit that to a specific horrible fan, or is that just the proverbial horrible fan?
Right. The you know, the archetype, the horrible fan archetype.
Oh, so you didn't find this speculation on the internet. You're generating this speculation.
Yes, this is my original horrible fan speculation.
Okay, well, I find this to be highly speculative. There is a real lack of evidence. Dislike. Unsubscribe.
Well,
that's how I feel about it.
I thought
listen, it's entirely possible. Around this time, we remember, right, that before his death, well, it would have been early on in Eitzel's solo career, right?
Yeah,
Buckley was following
97?
Following the Grace tour, which was a long tour. He was ensconced in Memphis in a house working on the album that would become My Sweetheart the Drunk. But, you know, it was purportedly a fairly circuitous, complicated, long, challenging process.
Yes.
That was unfortunately never completed as a result of his death. But it's entirely possible. He had worked with collaborators previously. Of course, Gary Lucas was a co-writer on a few of the songs on Grace.
Yes.
Well, we'll have to save that for the Jeff Buckley season of Backtracking.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to the final song on what I've declared to be side A of The Invisible Man, Shine. 4 minutes, 27 seconds. Let's go.
And I already have a brilliant disguise. I want to shine a light in your eyes. I want to shine a light in your eyes.
Okay, Jay William, why don't you tell us about this one?
So, you know, we talked about, you know, the adult contemporary kind of vibe of some of Eitzel's solo stuff. And this one definitely slots into that. But this one has more of like a 70s soul adult contemporary kind of vibe, like AM radio kind of thing. And, you know, it takes a while to kind of get to the first chorus, but I think that's when this song really, so to speak, shines.
Yeah, lyrically, I thought probably the thing that I thought was most interesting about this, he uses a phrase in here, not just another heart that's always busy being broken. And I recognize that turn of phrase, heart always busy being broken, from elsewhere in the catalog. But again, I could not track it down. I couldn't track it down. Do you know? Can you tell me?
I don't know offhand, but I haven't had a chance to research it.
Well, neither have I.
So it sounds familiar to you. It strikes a similar... Sounds familiar from the catalog. I am certain our many listeners are going to write in and tell us. But yeah, I would agree that musically, very breezy, so light, so cheery, very low-key. Definitely reminded me of a little bit of a Starbucks compilation song. Yeah, I think that's fair. But I do have to say that, it does have this very soulful chorus, which I think sounds really good and really that's where the song lifts. But then the last, like the coda kind of the song, it takes this dark, kind of almost a little bit creepy sort of musical turn where it's like an instrumental, but it kind of like goes a little discordant and kind of like, so, I think, who this actually reminds me of a little bit is a band that I know Eitzel was into, Belle and Sebastian.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Like this, there are Belle and Sebastian songs that definitely have this kind of like soft, soul kind of vibe to them. And so, that would be one speculative touchstone, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing
it's interesting.
Another thing I wanted to point out is that for some reason, and this must be some kind of in-joke, but the way the players on this song are credited, they all have nicknames. So Eitzel, for example, is Mark, quote, Scumboat Swan Eitzel.
Yeah.
Mark Capel is Mark, quote, Eyes on the Prize Capel. Then there's Eric, quote, Blue Man Gabao. And then there's Kristen, quote, Bali High Sobditch, who plays the electric piano. And if I think the sole reason she was hired to play keyboards is because she has a name consisting of her last name consists of two words that fit so well in the Eitzel environment. Sob.
Yeah.
And ditch.
Well, she appears earlier in the AMC catalog.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she does. She plays. She is credited on. This is gonna be tough. I'm not gonna find it, but she is credited earlier on in their catalog. I believe as playing keyboards as well. I could be totally wrong, but I think that's correct.
Oh,
maybe, yeah. Well, I don't know.
Discogs only has her playing on some Eitzel stuff, and then she must have been in a group called Little Fuzzy.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong again, but I vaguely remember her name from earlier in the Sean Body book.
Okay, fair enough.
Somewhere. All right, so listen. That is it. We are at the end of Side A of The Invisible Man. J. William Hall, are you ready next week to tackle Side B?
Are you asking me if I will be ready next week? I can't answer that right now.
Well, you better be ready.
I don't know how I'll feel tomorrow. I can't predict what's going to be happening next week.
Listen, yeah, but Deion Sanders doesn't. He knows when the game's going to be next weekend. He doesn't know, how he's going to feel tomorrow, but he knows he's going to be ready for that game. And I'm using Deion Sanders because that's the only football player whose name I can think of right now.
Does he truly know if he's going to be ready for that game next week, or
Oh,
does
no.
he
Deion-
just trusts?
Deion-
He has faith.
No. Neon Deion Sanders, Jay William, he knows because he's a champion. I don't actually think he was a champion in a literal sense, but he, in a figurative sense, he was a champion. You know football more than I do, so am I correct? Was Neon Deion Sanders a champion?
He was a champion. He was a champion as a member of the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes, he played on the Cowboys. You should know this because they beat the Buffalo Bills, the mighty Bills
Wow.
of Buffalo, not once, twice,
Yeah.
2 years in a row,
Wow.
while we were in
Well,
college.
Really? Well,
Yes, in
terrible.
fact,
Terrible.
I have a memory of us. We were together, and we were walking through the student union, and they were showing the Super Bowl on the TV screen, and we stopped and watched like a minute, and then walked away. And it was Dallas Buffalo. I remember.
Well, that definitely checks out. That's about the amount of time that I give to football these days. Is walking by, looking at it for a minute. All right, so Jay William, I am going to tell them how they get in touch with us. It is so easy. They just go to the Instagram and they type in Backtracking Rocks ROX. They go to Twitter, Backtracking Rocks ROX. They go to Reddit, the American Music Club subreddit, and they just check in and say hi. Or they email backtrackingrocksrx@gmail.com.
And honest to God, you don't even have to go and do anything. You could just, wherever you're situated right now, just be like, Siri, send email to backtrackingrocks. And then she'll do it for you. You have no excuse.
Yeah, well, you should definitely do that. Write reviews, share with your friends, do all the things. But most importantly, tune in next week when we cover Side B of Mark Eitzel's The Invisible Man. So, Jay William, as always, thank you for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.